is trying to connect with Teams. So I just resent her the invite. So keep an eye on the waiting room there.
Okay.
But yeah, let's get started. All right, welcome everyone. I'd like to call the April 2024 Parks and Recreation Board meeting to order. Before we move on to the agenda items, I'd like to acknowledge our hybrid meeting format. Board meetings and the public can now attend in person or via Teams. I'll now take roll call, and I really can't see anybody in the room. So, well, number one, oh, there's Laura. Can you hear Laura? Laura, we'll do roll call starting with you.
I can hear you,
Position
yeah.
one.
I
All right, Laura's here.
continue trying to sign in with my computer, but I'm on my phone for now, so I'm here.
Okay, welcome. Position 3, Nicholas Borer.
Here.
Position 4, Sheila Bricey.
Here.
Position 5, Manny Ocampo.
Here.
Position 6, Maggie Catlin.
Here.
Position 7 is me, I'm here. Position 8, Barbie Doshi. Not here. Position 9, Jace Franca.
Here.
Awesome. And in addition, the following city staff are in attendance. I'm going to guess who's there. We must have Denise. She is there, our Parks and Recreation Administrative Coordinator, Recreation Community Events Coordinator Blaine Land, and Parks Planning and Development Manager Aaron Milner. And is there anyone else I can't see?
No, but Laura is now in the meeting.
All right. Welcome, Laura. I'll now invite a motion to approve the March 2024 meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
So move. Second.
I believe that was moved by Manny and seconded by Sheila. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Okay, fantastic. Moving on.
You're breaking up a little bit, Whitney. Can you say that one more time?
Moving on to public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to offer a comment?
Nope.
Okay. So now chairperson comments. That would be such a packed agenda. I really do want to just get right to it. But yes, I just want to acknowledge that this is our last meeting with Denise, and I'm sad I'm not there. But Denise, thank you so much for everything that you have done, and everyone there, I'm sure will give you a big hug today.
Thank you.
There's also, in the last couple of weeks, the council did interviews and appointed new board members. Like Laura will be.
So sorry, we couldn't hear you one more time. Can you say that one more time, Whitney?
Yeah.
No.
I think you're still breaking up a little bit.
All right, should we try no earbuds?
Perfect.
Is that any better?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, how's that?
Good.
Great.
Okay, the earbuds are not having it. Oh, well. Okay. Well, I was just saying that as an update, council has done interviews and reappointed board members. So Laura will be joining us again, which is great news. And then a new board member, Malia Karakovlia, will also be starting in May, I believe, Blaine?
Yes.
Awesome. So we will look a little bit different in May. I recently met with Mary Beth Turk, who is the chair of the Arts Commission. And that was just a fun meeting to get together and learn about what the Arts Commission is up to right now, and also hear a little bit about how the Arts Commission functions, and learn about what they have going on and opportunities for us to potentially collaborate a little bit. And hopefully you get the chance to talk a little bit about art in today's meeting. we're both sort of sitting in this place of waiting for some direction to come from council on the roles and responsibilities of boards and commissions. So, but yeah, it was just a great meeting. And I think that her and I invite anyone else who would like to start attending each other's meetings or reviewing them after the fact. There's a lot of overlap there. April 27th is Earth Day. The city and parks and Whale Scout are hosting an Earth Day event at Blythe Park on April 27th. The comprehensive plan process is moving forward. So there's 2 other opportunities to have your voice heard. May 2nd from 6 to 8. And I believe that one's at UW Bothell. And then May 4th, which is a Saturday from 11 to 1 at Crystal Springs, I believe. So yeah, those are really all the updates that I have. Really looking forward to working together on this exciting project. So yeah, let's hop to it.
So I'm Mary Beth. And Whitney probably can't see me here, so she's invited me to that. So thanks very much. I just wanted to introduce myself. Hi, Whitney. Afar.
I believe the next thing on the agenda, the staff report.
Yeah, I just have a brief note kind of for me, and then it's over to Erin to run the show today. But going off of the newest board member, I just wanted to give a little background. Is her experience is ecological restoration. She has experience in U.S. Forest Services along with wildlife jobs and Parks and Recreation. So I think she'll be a great fit. I just kind of wanted to highlight that. We'll do an orientation hopefully with her before our May meeting because we have the Park Bothell Landing project in May.
Wait, what was the name again?
Her name, Melia, right? Malia, sorry, Malia. And the last name, that's a struggle.
Caracoglia.
Yeah. Say it again, Whitney.
I believe it's Caracoglia. Maybe I heard another voice that knew back there.
Yeah.
Maybe they can correct me if I'm wrong.
Amelia.
Yes.
Malia.
Malia. It's Bessie, exactly. And then other than that, from the Parks and Recreation side, there's not too much of an update. We are in the midst of, from event side's 4th of July planning, so that's going really well, along with summer nights in Bothell. Our programs are going really well so far. The pop-up dog park is slated to come back next month. That's a seasonal program. And our operations crew is working on doing some just cleaning up restoration of City Hall, Main Street, Park Bothell Landing, because those are going to be some highly used spaces. Next month, there's market's going to take place. UW block party is going to take place down in this corridor. So our crew is just preparing for the high season. And then, of course, picnic shelters and the spaces, the park system. Yeah.
For the 4th of July parade, I asked Whitney. Whitney didn't know. One of my organizations, Bothell Youth Court, because it's technically a 501c. Is there anything different we have to do because it's through Bothell Municipal Court to like have a float? Is there anything? Can we still like submit an application? Is there anything special we have to do?
Yeah. Anybody can. Yeah.
Right.
Perfect. That would be great. Yes.
I'm really excited. Judge Gelson, the previous municipal court judge, has been asking for it for years. And she texted me a little while ago. She's like, so are we going to get a float? And I was like, I don't have a truck, but if you can find me a truck. Yeah.
No, we're projecting a pretty busy year. Just from a planning side, we already have 35 applications. This time last year, there was only 12.
Oh my gosh.
So we're doing pretty well, but yes, apply.
Okay, cool.
But other than that, from the recreation side, there's not much of an update. I'm just really excited to have Erin here today to do the inclusive playground project exercise with you all. So Erin.
All right. So tonight, the majority of our meeting is going to be talking about the 2 conceptual designs that Blaine shared with you. Hopefully you all had a chance to take a look at them and review the engagement summary packet that was put together as well. And so Blaine's driving here, so I'm going to give you a quick update. You've seen these slides before, just kind of recap where we've been through this process. So back in May and June, we did a playground assessment, or Harper's Playground did a playground assessment where Cedar Grove Park was recommended as a community scale playground of choice. We went in July 15th, we had a presentation to the community conversation where Cody Goldberg from Harper's Playground had a conversation with our community, presented on Harper's Playground's kind of model and approach to playground design. August through November, this time period, we had our subcommittee was working on outreach, reaching out to our community, interested stakeholders. And then in November, we had our community workshop at City Hall, where we had people actually physically participate in activities towards the playground design. And then we had our community survey ran from the end of January to February. So moving along, this is a screenshot you've seen before as well on the park board roles. Phase 1 roles you're all familiar with. What we're here tonight to talk about is the alternative designs, the 2 alternative designs. So we're going to be reviewing these designs. Tonight I'll talk through each concept. So I'll talk through concept A, concept B, answer any questions that you may have on either one of those concepts. We'll do a short team activity. I have a couple boards on the wall here. Laura and Whitney remotely. We have a way of kind of doing it through the chat box. So I'll get to the instructions when we get to that portion of tonight's activity. And then after we go through that activity, we'll allow each board member an opportunity to share thoughts on each concept. And then after that's done, in an effort not to influence your opinions on any of this, I'll share with you some of the feedback we've had with our stakeholders. So I've met with 3 different stakeholder groups so far. I have 2 scheduled yet. So I'm excited to share with you some of the feedback we've received so far. And then finally, the board will have an opportunity to vote on a preferred concept. So ideally at the end of this meeting today, we'll have a vote on a preferred concept, and that can include some additional direction for us to gather and take back to the consultant. The consultant can refine that concept if there is any direction that the board wants to take. And then we'll present that back to you in a future meeting for final approval. So is there any questions on any of that? I'll get to the activity once we get to it, but any questions on any of the other stuff that I mentioned?
Sounds good.
Okay. So this is, I think you all are familiar with Cedar Grove Park. This is just kind of an overview of what the park looks like. You have a parking area. There's 60 some stalls there. You have a ball field area. We program baseball and softball on these fields in the springtime, soccer in the fall. The playground area is behind the restroom there, kind of on the north side of the restroom. And then we have a shelter underneath that grove of cedar trees as well. Another kind of amenity of this park that was really popular that kind of surfaced through our outreach is the walking trails around the park. So often people walk around that field where the cursor is, all the way through the Cedar Grove area, around the parking lot, and it's a kind of a longer walking loop. And there's ways to shorten that loop as well. So we have a lot of regular people that come to the park and walk on almost a daily basis. And then also we have a basketball court too. So this is one of the few full-size basketball courts that we have within our park system. So I do want to talk briefly while we're on this screen about some common themes we heard through our survey. So as far as the survey goes, we heard a lot about gathering with friends and family, the importance of the picnic shelter, the walking trail, which I mentioned. As far as play activities go, there's climbing and swinging. Play activities were very popular, but beyond that, kind of next level was nature-based play and unstructured play were also top rated. It was kind of interesting when we looked at our survey, we were able to kind of break it down based off of one question that we had in the survey. It was question 10 in our survey. We asked if the respondent typically visits the park with somebody that experiences a disability or whether they themselves had a disability. And so we were kind of able to break that out and look at the metrics based upon that, because obviously that's a key component to the project that we're working on here. And there was some themes to that, in that the nature-based play and the unstructured play rated a little bit higher, but also the quiet reflection area rated a lot higher than it did of those who don't experience disability when they visit the park. So that's just kind of a note just there that didn't really come out in the survey. Communal space rated very high, shade structures rated high, natural landscaping rated high. And the workshop more or less mirrored the feedback we received from the survey and the types of play activities and incorporating nature and gathering spaces. And then also at the workshop, we also heard a lot about the importance of enclosed space and those that visit the park with children that like to dart, the lopers is the term that was used. So you can go ahead and move on to the next slide there. So I do want to take some time to kind of walk through each one of these concepts. Laura Whitney, hopefully you can see this okay on your screen, or you have a copy in front of you. Everybody else in this room should have a copy. I do have a couple other copies if anybody back here that would like to. Yeah.
I have a copy in front of me, so that's okay.
Okay. Okay, just to orient yourself there, moving to the left is north. So to the right of the image, the drawing there, you have the parking lot area. The top of the image, you have the field, the ball field area. So as you're walking from the parking lot, there's two entrances from the parking lot. One of the entrances is a little bit informal. That's the one at the bottom of your screen. The top entrance behind the baseball backstop is more of a formal entrance. It has a seating area. It opens up into a little mini plaza area with a specimen tree. There's a climbing structure that's not really well defined at this point. But the idea is to have it be something that's significant to the park. So that image that you do see on the screen there is not necessarily what it is. I'm not even sure what that is actually, but it'd be something that has some meaning to the park itself, and it would be a unique structure and a climbing structure of some sort. There's a bouncer kind of in that area too, or just above that specimen tree. And then you have that iconic Harper's Hill with an accessible pathway to the very top. And then kind of a seating area at the very top of the hill with a metal slide, a double metal slide down the hill. So this is a feature that you see in the Harper's Playground designs. And then moving further north, you have the Play Plaza area, where you have a bunch of amenities. You have your swings, you have your spinner, an accessible spinner. You have a WeGo swing, which if you're not familiar with that, there's an image of it at the top right of the screen right there. Those that are bound to wheelchairs or bound to wheels can actually wheel onto the piece of equipment and get that kind of swinging motion. And that's really the only way that you can get that motion. And that is a motion that actually rated high in our surveys and our outreach. And then you have a nature play log area as well. There's a pathway, kind of an artistic pathway that's not real well defined as well. You have the disco swing, and then there's also pathways. So we did hear that pathways are important. So pathways are actually incorporated into the playground. And that's something that you'll also see in concept B. There's no fence or enclosure, but there was some thought put into it in the fact that there's some vegetative landscaping, particularly towards the parking lot area, and also acting as kind of a vegetative screen to the backside of the restrooms as well. So that was kind of the idea and the concept behind that as well. And then shade, to address the shade issue, there's some thought put into the placement of trees on the south side of structures. So is there any questions, just general questions on concept A?
To both go ahead.
Oh, no,
This is both concepts. The dot with a circle, a tree.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. That's the circles.
yeah.
And then are the ones that don't have the bushy stuff in there like higher trees, and the stuff with the bushes like more bush? So I'm just trying to look at like enclosure wise, is this gonna give us enclosure, or is this a tree that's way up there?
The dots with circles are trees. So the green bushy stuff is probably like shrubbery.
Got it.
lower-
Okay.
lower vegetation.
I have a question on that too. Are the circles around it, is that supposed to be like how much shade it's supposed to be forecasting around that tree, or is it just to stimulate like that it is taking up space?
It's really just to identify that there's a tree there.
Okay.
Nothing's been.
We're really overcomplicating.
No, these are great questions.
It serves a purpose. Okay.
Yeah, as far as the tree specimen selection, like that will probably come later down
Okay.
the process, but you know, I mean, those are good questions to know, you know, because shade is something that's, you know, it can be a trigger to certain people.
Where's the picnic shelter?
It's in the Cedar Groves.
It's in, yeah,
Here, back here.
Will we be expanding or adding additional coverage
this is
structures?
from what
What it has right now.
This actually pretty closely mirrors the footprint of the existing playground. It's not too different.
Okay.
We're not really moving into the tree area, the mature cedar trees. You can actually see some dots there. So they're
Yeah.
at the bottom of your screen. Those are where the mature cedars are.
Mhm.
So that area kind of gets left alone. Yeah.
There was
We're
some,
definitely, that was one of the things that we relayed to our consultants is we are not removing trees. So we're pretty firm about that.
So it'll just have that one shade structure that's currently there.
It'll have the picnic table or the picnic shelter.
Shelter.
Yes, that's the only,
Yeah.
that's the only shade shelter.
Okay.
I think Whitney's trying to.
I'm sorry, I know it's really hard. There was some discussion of moving the footprint sort of back into the area that's currently dominated by blackberries. Does that happen in this, or is the extent of it like sort of where the swings are now? And are those swings the same swings, or are those new swings?
Everything's due. We are probably encroaching that area just a little bit. I don't know that we're encroaching it a whole lot. Yeah, I mean, I think the footprint is more or less the same. I mean, the basketball court, the way it's sited right now, the swings are more or less in line with that basketball court. So we're probably going a little bit further north, but you're talking like a matter of like 15 feet or something like that. It's nothing significant.
But those would be.
Those swings
new
are different
trees.
though.
One more time, Whitney.
Sorry. Yeah, those would be new trees then, like the circles with the dots that they put in there. Because right now those are not existing trees, because those ones are marked by EX tree. Is that right?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll move on to concept B. All right, so we're talking a little bit about the footprint of the playground. This one is a little bit expanded from what the playground currently is. It is actually utilizing a little bit more of that Blackberry area, Whitney, that you were just talking about. We are actually taking up the basketball court as well. And that is something that we had some conversations, some back and forth with our consultants about. I know there's some concern about removing amenity, which we all have that concern too. That'd be something that we'd have to kind of study and understand how we could provide that amenity in different locations. So it's not necessarily meaning we're removing the basketball hoop and it's gone forever. We don't at all think that's a wise move. Moving forward, we'd have to be strategic about how we did it. So there'd be more conversation around that. So I wouldn't get too hung up on that point at this point. But that is something that is different from the other concept that we have. So also, there is no, there's no Harper's Hill as we typically see them. It's more of it's like a bowl hill on kind of the north side there. So to kind of visually understand it, you can see the arrows pointing downhill. So that would be the way you would slide down the hill. And the walking path up there would be a little bit elevated. And you'd have the double slide and the roller slide would be going down the hill, as well as the rocks climbing up the hill. There's the disco swing up there, or maybe that's the bouncer, I can't.
It's the disco swing, yeah.
And then we have the swing area where the basketball hoop is as well. There's a couple little nature pockets, I guess, for lack of a better term, kind of right there in the middle where there's stone pathways. There's a little willow's nest, which is kind of like a whimsical concept, I guess. It's not all that defined at this moment, but it's just an idea. Your amenities, your bouncer, your spinner, and your climber are kind of in the row there where the cursor is. Your WeGo is kind of at that entrance from the parking lot. You have the formal entrance like you had before in concept A. This one incorporates a sensory garden right next to it, and then there's a sand area. And I didn't talk about the sand area in the first concept, but I'm assuming that you all saw it. This one's a little bit on a larger scale. The idea is it's like an expanded beach almost. And you would actually kind of wheel down into that sand area, so it is a little bit of a depression. So it's just a longer, elongated version of their typical sand area.
When do you want more tactical questions by activity or element?
I think now would be a good time.
For the turf hill that you described in B, and then the Harper's Hill, that is actual AstroTurf, or is it actual grass? I'm assuming AstroTurf is.
Yeah, most of it, Harper's Playground does prefer to use synthetic turf. For a couple reasons. There's a tactile element to it.
Exactly.
You can slide down the hill, which is a huge feature. When you go to Harper's Playgrounds, you see cardboard and people are sliding down it. It doesn't get quite as warm as like a rubber uniform surfacing. You can sit on, it's comfortable to sit on. So there's several reasons. I think, and there's a certain aesthetic to it as well.
Right.
So I think those would be the primary reasons why.
So one obviously is the larger one in B versus the Harper's Hill. Is there a maintenance increase from the amount of maintenance that you guys would have to do based on the size of that versus if it was the Harper's Hill?
There's no doubt, like a lot of these features in both concepts, they're durable material. They're going to be there for a long time. You're talking like rocks and concrete and stuff like that. But there's no doubt, like there's playground components that are going to need to be replaced on intervals. The surfacing is another one that is going to have to be replaced on intervals.
Okay.
That's a reality with this project. And there's certain areas of the playground that are going to receive a lot more wear than other areas. Wherever you have a spinner, your transition area, your slides, you're going to see a lot more wear. There's certain approaches you can do to kind of counter that you can cut out. On our synthetic fields all the time,
right.
Cut out patches that are damaged and replace it. So that's.
And then even on those, even on Harper's Hill, and the reason I'm asking is my visit when I went to Portland 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. What is down below? Because the one place I went, this young kid was sliding on cardboard with their dad, but he went into the bottom and almost hit the cement. Well, there was cement, so I'm just saying, one section was cement. What is at the bottom of the hills for them to stop, I guess?
Well, you're going to see a lot of concrete in those pathway areas. These are things we can kind of work out through design development, but typically we see like the hill, there'd be a little bit of a transition area, but there's no doubt that concrete's right there.
Okay.
So there's a certain amount of risk in play. And it's all what you're comfortable with. you know,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
and there's playground safety.
standards, I'm sure that they have to.
That we definitely meet.
And I don't want to take up all the questions, but the next one is on the water. So with the sand and the water one where the kids play, how are we managing the water quality, let alone the sand quality of animal playing in it and leaving behind things and that kind of thing? Only because it has nothing to past experience of sand in the house or whatever. That happens a lot. So what does that happen? I'm concerned on the maintenance for you guys on those two elements of the park. That just seems like a lot, but I could be completely wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's a balancing act, as sand, water play is
Yeah.
something that is valuable. And it's popular.
It is.
And when you do have elements within your park that are popular, a lot of times it requires a lot more maintenance to get used. But that is something that we've talked about internally. In fact, one of our stakeholder meetings is an internal stakeholder meeting.
Good, okay.
We include our maintenance staff. And that is something that we've talked a lot about. It is a concern.
And then for B, that is just a sand, I can't remember the exact term, sand wall or sand area, no water.
There's water in both of them. It's not real obvious in the concept.
Okay, that was my question. And then just, would the new piping have to be installed in order for all that to happen? And so the water activities, true or false, would not be available during the winter because of the ice freezing and things like that?
You have to winterize it.
Yeah, okay.
And Laura has a question. She's written it right here. Both sand structures incorporate water play. How many trees have to be removed for each design? How do they differ budget-wise? Is there a wiggle room for a combo design? What is the visibility of the entire area from the picnic shelters?
Those are all great questions, and I'm gonna keep looking at it.
Sorry, it's so many all at once.
It's more effective that way.
So the first question, do both sand structures incorporate water play? Yes, that's the idea, that they would both have water play. In fact, I don't know if there's an image on those concepts. I do have an image here, what they're.
One of them looked like it did, and the other one, it seemed unclear, but
Yeah, that's why I was
Yeah,
asking.
each of the sand areas would have like essentially a sand table. You can actually wheel up to the table. There's a little cutout. There's a water wheel, essentially, that
You turn,
turn
and it's.
the water would come out.
Yeah,
So that's the design that they typically use. And the idea on both these concepts is that we'd incorporate that into both. How many trees would have to be removed for each design? None of the mature cedar trees would be removed. To the north, there are some trees that are kind of in questionable health. Some maples and alders and cherries, I believe, in that area. I did go out and kind of do an inventory, and it's possible maybe one or two of those would have to be removed, but we'd be replacing those with, in my opinion, specimen trees that would have provide a lot more long-term benefits to the park and to our forest canopy, honestly. The ones that are there are pretty in rough shape. And then is there wiggle room for a combo design? Yes, that's why we are here tonight. And when we go through our activity, we'll be going through an activity, understanding what you like and dislike about each one. each concept and what you'd like to see, maybe that's not in either concept. And ideally, at the end of this meeting, we'd have a resolution to move forward with one of the concepts, and that can include some additional direction. So if there is an element of one of the other concept that you'd like to include and pursue, we can take that back to the consultant and see what they can do to incorporate that. And then what is the visibility of the entire area from the picnic shelter? That's a good question. That actually came up in one of our other meetings. Yeah, that was Denise. So you guys think alike. You can see, I believe you can see just fine from the picnic shelter into the playground. There is some separation there, and that is partially intentional because we do reserve that picnic shelter. And there's some concern about, if you are reserving it and you're paying good money to do that, you don't want kids playing in your picnic shelter with you while you're doing your activity. So, but there should be visibility, and that could certainly be something that we specify that in the future design process. And then how are you addressing parking issues? Can you elaborate on that? Are you talking in terms of ADA parking or?
No, I just heard in the survey, it seemed like there were concerns over parking issues, and as amazing as this playground will be when we're finished, I'm just concerned that will be exacerbated.
Yeah, and that actually could be the case when we do have soccer events. It does get busy. Baseball, softball events, it does get busy. When you have 60 people in the shelter, it does get busy. So I don't know that there's much we can do to expand parking in the area. I think we'd be looking at actually probably adding additional ADA spots, honestly, just based on some of the feedback we've heard from our stakeholder meetings. But I do expect it would be a popular.
Yeah, I just wondered, I haven't been over to that area in a while, but I wondered if the main street that it's on, if there's any way we can get some side street parking or something from the city to expand the options.
That's something we can certainly look at. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know what the answer is, but we can definitely jot that down and take a look.
There was just one question, Aaron, that you skipped over that I'm still a little bit interested in, which is how they differ in budget. And the reason being, when we go to this other exercise, it would be interesting to know, like, oh, if we add Harper's Hill, we're adding $10 million. Whereas if we don't, if we just add swings there, we're at 1 million. And I don't know, I think that budget might become really important, but I feel like a kid in a candy store right now, just like, this sounds fun. Let's add this. Let's add this. So I think at some point we have to start, considering the budget into the options.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's difficult to determine at this point exactly what that budget is. We do have some estimates, early estimates that the playground's going to range from 1.8 million to $2.2 million. There's no doubt, well, I guess from my perspective looking at it, concept B is going to cost you more money. You have grading, much more grading along that kind of bold hill. You're taking up more area. I think it would be a little bit more expensive project.
Whitney had her hand up. After Whitney.
Whitney.
Okay, my question, going back to the surfacing. So I know the Harper's Hill is turf, but what about the sort of similar colored circles underneath, like the log play and the disco swing? Is that turf as well, or is that the rubbery stuff? And follow up, what are the best practices in terms of putting these or building impervious structures, near the established mature cedar trees?
Those are good questions. So to answer your first question with the surfacing, the way it's drawn up, it's all synthetic turf. And that's the kind of where Harper's Playground's leading just generally in their playground designs. It's not to say through design development, if we wanted to alter that, we could do a kind of poured in place rubber surfacing or tiles of some sort. There are advantages to doing things like tiles, they're easier to replace. But as the drawing shows right there, it's synthetic turf. But those are things that we can kind of work through design development. And so as far as the trees go, that's something that we will be looking at as far as tree retention. I mean, we're definitely going, that's kind of my background actually is as an arborist. So like, I'm well aware of the impacts of construction to mature trees, especially western red cedar trees are especially susceptible to construction activity and compaction. So that is something that we will have a tree retention plan as we go through design development. And there'll be kind of off limit areas, and there'll be things we can do and things we can't do. And we'll be evaluating those as we go through design.
Clearly, as you mentioned, B is much more extensive than A. It potentially eliminates the basketball court. What kind of feedback have you gotten regarding the usage of that basketball court? I know quite a few parks that have basketball courts. I never see anything.
I don't really, it's most of my feedback is just anecdotal from what I've seen, but it does get used fairly regularly. I will say that the city removed the basketball hoop a few months ago. And yeah, at the council meeting.
Danny, in the survey, in question 3, showed basketball was number 7 out of 7 in terms of what they most like at 17.6%. And what do they enjoy doing at the park? Basketball was 19.85%, which 5 out of 7 of their choice.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. It's for one thing, you know, even though it's a full court, it's usually played half court, and it's somewhat limited. And as I've been out and about, 2 words keep popping up every time you see hard surface.
It's one word.
Is it one word?
Yes.
Okay. Pickleball, I guess it's 1 word. So was there any thought of maybe doing, you know, it's potentially a little bit smaller footprint, a pickleball court than basketball court, but. And then the other question, and similar to Laura, that the cost is going to be an issue, obviously, but these are all fantastic elements. And I'm sure that whatever gets adopted is going to be very, very popular. I love the sensory garden. I think, and I'll put my thought up to that one. I think that's very important for sight impaired and hearing impaired, and I think that's a great amenity. Let's see, I had one other question. As far as the turf versus rubber, the sliding part, kids love to slide or roll. You can't go to a park that has a hill that you don't see kids rolling down. And that's something we don't have a whole lot of. So I like, for that reason, I really do like concept B, but recognizing that it may be very expensive. They did a great job.
All right. I want to just respond to your question real quick, because you did have a question in there, I think, with the pickleball courts.
Yeah.
I mean, that is, and basketball courts, that is something, you know, it's something that's been mentioned. We've heard it. Like, is there a way that we can do something else, whether it's maybe not removing the basketball courts, but somehow incorporating some other activity, you know, because not only do people play basketball out there, you'll see kids on the bikes or trikes or whatever too, as well, you know, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, I have
when we're talking about the surfacing and we're talking about using turf essentially, have we looked into like the differences in like a rubber-based turf versus a cork-based turf that we use elsewhere? I just have some significant concerns about using the rubber-based products because even the newer ones still have a lot of stuff in them. And we know in the sports world, it's the goalies that get cancer, and so I have some concerns about kids rolling around on this stuff down hills for long periods of time. And so if we could do a cork, I just don't know if that's an option or if we look into that because that would be very much safer.
So this,
Obviously more expensive.
the playgrounds are slightly different than athletic fields. So the athletic fields have an infill that kind of makes those grass blades stand upright and some impact attenuation depending on the type of infills that you have. The playgrounds are slightly different where they actually don't have any infills. So what you'll typically see is just your standard, it'd be probably a lower pile, not quite as tall, and then like a thatch layer that's kind of makes it stand upright a little bit, and then underneath that there'd be a pad. So that pad is what provides you the impact attenuation. So what you're concerned about on the playground situation primarily is a kid falling from a structure and hitting their head and having a serious injury or death in the worst case scenarios.
Yeah.
So that's how
It
that's
sounds like
constructed.
the surface is more similar to the ones that we see up in, I don't know if you've been to the Everett, in Everett they have one and it's their big accessible playground and there's no like rubberness to it, but then if you go to Woodinville, it's all the rubber-based stuff that gets everywhere. I know it gets all over my kid and it makes me a little nervous, but the Everett one, nothing's coming off on you, so it does sound like this is more of one where
There's no infills.
residues coming up, yeah.
All right. I want to get onto the activity. This is all great discussion. We have more discussion ahead of us. So Whitney, Laura, you're online, so you both will have to do this through chat. But what we have in this room here, we have 3 boards up on the wall. One says concept A, one's concept B, and the other one's what would you like to see? So in each of the concept boards, we have a thumbs up and a thumbs down. If you have something that's kind of like in the middle or you're like, I kind of feel okay about this, the meh section, you can put that right in the middle. But what I want for this activity is each one of you write down what you like and what you dislike about each concept, and then also what you'd like to see. So you can go ahead, hopefully you thought about this a little bit and we've had enough discussion to kind of get yourself going a little bit, but I won't spend too much time on this. Maybe give you about 10 minutes or so. We'll kind of see how it goes, and then we'll have a little discussion about it afterwards and see where things are kind of landing.
Do you want to mute like Whitney and I, so the 2 of us can discuss, or are we doing this as a solo endeavor online?
We're doing it as a solo activity, and then we'll discuss it as a group afterwards.
Okay.
So everybody will have an opportunity to kind of talk through their thinking on each concept.
I don't know. That's a good question.
Wait, what could be it?
Aaron, do you want, for example, for concept A, if I have 4 things I really like, put them on one sticky, or you want separate sticky?
However you want to do it.
We can have more than one thing.
Put it, we want.
Okay.
We want them all.
Okay.
Put them all down. Yeah. So this is part of the information we'll be taking back to our consultant as well. So, and I'll be taking notes when we have the discussion.
Whitney and Laura, when you put your what you like and what you don't like, will you go concept A, like and not like, and then concept B? Okay, perfect. Thank
I was
you.
just gonna say, gonna read
Yeah.
my mind. Sorry to whoever has to translate my comments.
It's okay.
Let's give it a couple more minutes here. online folks doing? Are you more or less wrapped up, Laura and Whitney?
I'm jealous, Whitney. Where are you getting this insider info?
On a Orca Network thread. They
Okay,
chat
let me know.
everybody.
Let me know if there's any coming right through the little bit of water in front of Victoria, Canada. I have seen a seal.
Okay.
I don't believe there's orcas coming in here.
You're on my text list.
Okay.
Okay. Looks like most everybody's wrapped up here. Denise is still writing Laura and Whitney's comments. But I'd like to have a little roundtable discussion and just kind of, you know, if you want to share your thoughts on either concept, both concepts, what you'd like to see. I think we just kind of open it up to just general comments, and I think we probably work best just go around the room. So, Manny, if you don't mind starting, that'd be fabulous.
Can we go to the wall?
You can do whatever you
Because
want.
I can't remember where I wrote.
Yeah.
I like the sand and water feature, on both concepts. The walking paths are great, in both. Harper's Hill, I think needs a little bit more detail. I don't quite get that concept yet. They can go in the middle. The log play area also, I think that would be very popular, but the design of that will be very, very important. And perhaps as you go through that design exercise, another feature might be as useful as logs. This concept is more affordable, obviously, but it seems minimalist when compared to me. And as you said, maybe if you could do some combining, that would be great. All of the apparatus that covers everything. The turf hill, I think, is great. And, you know, turf is very different than the sports fields. And even the sports fields are going away from the rubber. We've determined that. That's not good. So it's whether it's almond shells or some other technology, they're making great improvements. I like the saltwater area, walking path. The sensory garden, as I mentioned before, I really think is great. And if that could be expanded somewhat, that would be great. The Cedar area left untouched is very important. Having been involved with the acquisition of that park, the original owners, that was their one caveat in having the city buy that park, was keep those cedar trees. And so we worked real hard to do that. So that's great. The basketball court being eliminated, you know, I'm on the fence on that. I know it's important, and you know, if you eliminate anything, try eliminating anything in park. Somebody's not going to be happy. So that's, I'm on the fence with that. But over here, are the bathrooms and picnic shelters ADA compliant now, or will they need to be upgraded in any way? Let's see, can't even read that. Oh, wayfinding signage might be a good thing to do in there, so people know, but particularly since I have a feeling a lot of new people are gonna be coming to this park. And so having a kind of a roadmap, maybe even just at the entrance of where each different kind of playground item is. More seating for the adults, you know, whether it's benches or picnic tables. I don't know if there's room for that, but benches would be good. Either built into the design or, you know, on rocks or something for the adults to sit. My most important one, I think we need a therapeutic recreation program established in Bothell, in the Parks and Recreation Department. I've worked with such, and the caveat is we need more recreation everywhere, in almost everything. But a therapeutic recreation program, particularly given the kind of feedback we're hearing, we've got a pretty good big clientele, and a formal program where you could do outings, where you can do lots of programming, field trips, et cetera, working with the schools would be ideal and expensive.
Thanks, man. Jace?
Sure. Concept A, I like concept A. I think the biggest thing that stuck out to me is that was cheaper. It sounds like it's gonna be more cost effective. That being said, I like the idea of having a bigger sand pit. I know that sounded like it was gonna cost more money. This might just be me and my financial responsibility, but if it's gonna make it last, or if it's gonna make it worth it and add more value to people's lives, or for me, like I would say, I love driving my car, it's very expensive, but it adds value to my life, right? And I feel like if you have something that might cost more money to maintain, or it might track dirt in people's houses, or kids might get sand in their shoes, but there's more space for, I guess just okay. The sand pit sounds like something that is more accessible to everybody, and for everybody, like literally everybody. Some of the items on here, like the Willow's Nest, doesn't look as accessible as something. So I think anything that's going to allow more integrative play is going to be better. So that's my only downside with concept A is yes, it's more cost effective, but a bigger area for more sensory might be better, which is what I liked about concept B, was that there was the sensory garden and a little bit larger of a sand pit / water system. I don't even remember what I didn't like about B. I think it was probably that it was more expensive. Yeah, it was more expensive, and that's more expensive is never good. But I really do think that sensory is so important, and if there are more of those or a larger space for that to happen, where it can be the most inclusive, that would be great. Something I'd like to see is, the main thing was every inch of the park being as accessible as possible. Like I know there was a lot of stone pathways. I think actually in concept B, there were some stone pathways to things, and I'm sure that can be accessible, but at the same time, I don't know. I'm not super well versed in the ADA world, and I don't know how accessible that could be for some people with wheels and so on and so forth. But yeah, that's.
I'm just going to move up to our virtual folks. Laura, do you want to go since you're kind of next in our
Sure.
room?
I have put a bunch of stuff in the chat, but I will try not to take up too much time. I prefer option A. I like keeping the basketball court and also using it multi-purpose for pickleball, because I think it would allow a more multi-generational playground. I don't think there's a lot else for teens at either option, so I think that kind of keeps that, plus it makes some adults happy, and pickleball is played by all people. So that's my thoughts overall. I also just wanted to plug in that as we're doing designs, can we think about ways that we can raise money? I heard Manny say benches. I thought the same thing. I didn't write it down, but I thought the same thing. I don't know how many benches are here. But benches, or at the entryway, if there were like salmon stones placed into the walkway or something with people's names on them that we could sell, quote unquote, to help raise some funds for the park. I think we should think about those because they probably have to go into the design phase. Apart from that, I will leave my comments otherwise, and if anyone wants to read them, they can read the chatter. I hope Blaine can pass them along. Thank you.
We have them on the board already, Laura.
Oh, thank you. That's amazing.
Denise is got it.
I'll scribe.
Whitney?
Yeah, thanks for the update.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I sort of falling in line with some of what everyone else is saying, that generally as a layout, liking to start with concept A. I sort of have like a lukewarm response, some feeling about the Harper's Hill. I know it's their iconic thing, but it kind of pushes out the width of the design, and it pushes it closer to those cedar trees, and I'm just worried about them. So some of the things, for concept A, I love the sand and Lennon land, I think is what they called it. But from concept B, to be able to expand it and have it larger would be great. You know, in the survey, the people out of the survey too are really excited about a splash pad. So really what a splash pad is like a place where kids can interact with water. And I think if you add sand to it, it just makes it all that much cooler. And so having, you know, the water turned off in the winter, people can still use that sand as like a dry sandbox. And so it's not like a traditional splash pad where when the water is off, it sort of becomes a less interactive space. So I think really going big on the sand and water play would be great. I have like really big concerns about removing the basketball court, because, you know, the whole process has been all about the playground being replaced and not a survey about sports courts. So I think it's a little misleading to look at the survey results and say that people don't really value the basketball court, because I don't think that's true. I think also it could be a great wheel play zone for all people. So yeah, some of the other features from concept B that I did really like were that willow feature, the willow nest, the sensory garden, and of course the bigger beach. So that's kind of where I am. The concept B also just felt like a whole lot of artificial turf in that bowl. And I think it would get really hot and just not be a very usable space. So I'm not a fan of the bowl.
Thanks, Whitney.
So we send this to you later. I have a lot of comments, but it's more kind of 60% comments, if that makes sense. But I'll go through kind of the highlights. I support keeping the basketball court and making it multi-sport. Totally agree with that. I think you should try to expand to the north or northwest as much as you can. Stay away from the cedar trees. But up that hill further, and I mean, it's just useless brush there. Basketball court, I'd consider a barrier to stop the balls going into the play area. I see a lot of planning here. I'm kind of concerned how that kids will climb in trees and they'll make their own paths. Survivability, that stuff is going to be difficult. I think this is too much and it won't survive. I consider, I put it up there and add kind of a wavy path. So, you know, somebody that's on a wheelchair and somebody can push them real fast and it kind of does that a little bit. I think that would be, and then the kids using their little scooters and their rollers would use that too. I see a ton of seating walls in here. To me, there seems like a ton. I see no concern there. They're everywhere. The Lennon land, so the sand, I think, needs to be away from the pathways. I like where that is up in a corner away. The kids will spread that all over the place. It becomes a slip hazard if it gets on the sidewalk. This other one's bigger, it's great, but it's kind of right in the main path. That's gonna be difficult to maintain. I'd like to see those entry plazas bigger, typical in both of them, either or. I think just a bigger space. If people are sitting in there gathered, it would kind of scare people away. I always consider wheelchair, accessible doesn't mean just wheelchairs. There's other barriers to consider. Consider coloring of all this, for artistic. There's some things you got to consider there. We'll add picnic tables. I think that's a good idea if you can fit them in. Maintenance access. So how are we going to get a rig back in here if we have to pull out a slide, or you got the swing back in there, so that's set in the ground. That's going to take some maintenance. How are you going to get a rig in there to maintain that, get that out? A lot of times you need a hoist. Consider that and make sure there's a pathway to get through here. If you're going to do any maintenance during the day, you want a truck backing up, so make sure it's kind of a loop to get through. The restrooms, is that compliant right now? I think that should be part of this. If it's not, a lot of times there, I didn't go in there, but it seemed pretty small. I don't know. What else? Play equipment. Consider some net climbers possibly. The log play, it's got to be in a kit that you can buy replacement parts, not just logs that they cut out of somewhere and then. And when it comes time to, when it rots out and you got to fix it, you're like, oh my goodness, what do I do? Consider that. Water play, so is that domestic water?
Yeah, it would be domestic
So
water.
you're gonna have to go to sewer with that. There's, maybe not here, I don't know. In Seattle, I had to go to sewer and that.
For drinking fountains you do, I don't know. That's good.
It's something to consider in design. You may want to put it closer to the restroom if they're going to go to sanitary sewer, just think about that. Oh, what else? The paving. I like the idea of a kind of you got the decorations and the paving, some kind of a like a search or a labyrinth or clues or something. I think that's kind of neat. The kids will enjoy that. Debris from the trees. So you got the big trees. We got a lot of southwesterly winds. And consider that's going to blow onto this. The maintenance of that. The whirl's got really tight tolerances around where you roll on. What's it going to do that? How are you going to keep that clean? Consider that.
You're talking the spinner or the?
Yeah, the spinner, the whirl. I call it a whirl.
Gotcha.
Specimen tree, what's that? I don't know if I'd put a specimen tree in the middle of the play area. A specimen tree somewhere else, not where it's going to get destroyed by kids. Not knocking kids, they love it, but they just. Consider lighting. I don't know if we're going to have lighting here, if there's power, but where are you going to do that and how are you going to do that? Be part of the design. I don't see a 2 to 5 area. Versus 5 to 12. Is there a 2 to 5? Is there a tot lot somewhere? I don't see it in here, and it probably should be. And normally they need to be a little bit separate, so and clearly marked. Garbage recycle cans. Are they going to be in here? Consider that. And then specifically, I think a hybrid of these two would make sense. A seemed a little bit crowded to me. That's kind of the only overall thing I saw. I'd like to see some spinners, not necessarily accessible spinners, but the little ones, just a 2-foot radius that you can fit in. So then you just need a 6-foot youth zone, and kids love those. They would be able to use them a lot. There, I took it up enough time. I'm sure there's more, but that's a lot. I agree with a lot of what everybody else said also.
Okay, I'm gonna do the nanny move because I don't want to forget anything. Okay, so concept A, I liked the basketball court with a caveat of along what Manny was saying. I think it's an excellent opportunity to make modifications to make it available for adaptable sports, and maybe we could highlight that as something that's not really available in this area. And I liked the sculpture climber. I wasn't a huge fan of concept A. Number one reason was there's swings in the middle of the play area, and as someone with a kid who runs by the swings, it's a recipe for disaster when kids are running around and there's swings in the middle of it. So big not fan of that. I also wasn't a huge fan of Harper's Hill. I feel like it just breaks up the flow of play and it takes up a lot of space and there's not a lot of usability out of it.
And I didn't like that there's not really any area away from the play areas where kids that need a sensory break can go and have a break. Okay, that was my main thing. Don't like the swings in the middle of the play area. Concept B, I liked much more. I liked how it was almost the circular type enclosure where there's imaginative play kind of centered in the center of it. I agree that the bowl takes up a lot of space. I don't know if we can make a smaller bowl to make room for other things. I like that the swings are in their own section away from imaginative play. And I really like the Willow's Nest as kind of a creative space for kids to center their bowl. Like the larger stand, like others have said, like the sensory garden, like others have said. For concept B, I really didn't like the loss of the basketball court. I just think it's a lost opportunity for accessible sports, as well as teenage to adult communal play. And same as concept A, I didn't like that there was no quiet areas away from the play area. And then in general, what I would like to see on the ceilings, nest-like enclosures or something away from the main play area for adults, children, whoever needs a sensory break to be able to go to that space. I mean, even adults, there's a lot of mindfulness meditation, or it would be great if we could make it a way that even adults could utilize the space. And then better enclosures with bushes and trees around the main play areas, just for those kids that do like to sprint away quickly. And especially my children, I would not say are elopers, but my mother and his other grandmother specifically choose parks with, like, that are a little easier because they're scared they won't be able to. Like, I wasn't sure kind of with the seating with these walls, how they were and what the fact was all about. But I would like to see, and then maybe in here, various heights of walls and chairs and stones for people. I think in my field of work, some people need higher chairs. They can't get off of low chairs. Some people do better with lower seating. So just having lots of different opportunities for different people. I agree with the wayfind. There should be much better wayfinding signage in the park to highlight the amenities. Okay, maybe remind me, was it ferrets that were there? What was there?
Therapeutic?
No, what was the animal that was there? What kind of farm was it?
The mink farm.
I was hoping there was gonna be a mink somewhere. I would love it if we could do something with the mink. Maybe we decided not for a reason.
I'm not sure what they did with the minks.
Yeah.
The only thing that was left was the cages.
Yeah.
So sad.
I remember.
Oh, yeah.
I do realize this is not everyone, but I do like the idea of having like this parkour area. I know my kid loves it. A lot of kids do like that. And that could be incorporated with some of the benches and the seating. And it could also be something that people in that community could buy to help raise funds.
Great idea.
That's what I got.
Here, one safety thing, the concept B has a metal slide almost facing south. That probably shouldn't be.
Yeah.
To the north.
I could tell they're trying to orient it as best they could away from.
Even if they move
stuff.
switch that with the roller slide, it would make a big difference.
Sure. I like concept A, keeping the basketball court. I think I don't know how scientific the survey was, but I think there was a large enough usage and appreciation of it on the survey. So I think we would benefit to enhance that or add pickleball or whatever in keeping that. The other thing that I thought was, because I like concept A better, is the larger hill in B, or the scoop is moving the hill on A over to that area and then move those over and maybe somehow orient the swings there so that in concept A. So we would take Harper's Hill and try and put the swing sets and Harper's Hill further out so that that piece wouldn't be so visually taking, in my opinion, maybe taking up space. But again, I don't know if we can do that.
So essentially just swapping the play plaza area with some consideration of swing.
Yeah.
With the hill.
Correct. And then somehow if we could do the sensory garden, though I did look up that on the Harpers, and they have edible plants. My youngest would have eaten all of the plants, edible or not, if she found out about that. So I would just, again, just a food for thought on that. I think, and what I don't like is more me not understanding the seating, but also for the barrel or sculpture climber, for concept A, I would rather have the climber from concept B.
The log?
The other climber, yeah. Yeah, when I was looking at that online. So that recommendation. The other thing, though, I realize with the cedar trees, this makes it much more difficult, but just everywhere when I'm at the parks is they just want more places to have picnics, either picnic tables or another structure that they can rent out and be able to use. And I appreciate with the Cedars, that would make it very difficult because you can't build there, but that feedback. And the restrooms, that was one of my questions too. In concept B, I don't like the larger water thing. I'm just very concerned where that is and with the cedar trees, the types of animals that will be scurrying through the evenings to get to wherever they want to go and finding sand to play in and use as a restroom, for lack of a better term, is a concern for me. And then also, I realize that the sand is still fun to play in even in the winter or fall. But again, the structure, the actual water structure would really only be available. I'm making this up for 6 months of the year. So I'm leaning more to not having it. So that's my thing. Let me see. The Willow's Nest was cool. My thing, when I was doing my own notes, it was maintenance. What is that made of? How long, what's the lifetime extension of it? What is the ability to clean it? Because we got kids with all kinds of activities going on in that place. And then the boulder scramble and concept B concerns me because if it's anything like the park I went to in Portland, that is cement that the kids climb on and it's fun, but when Johnny pushes Susie or Susie pushes Johnny, are they gonna fall on that? I'm assuming that's all been, I mean, they're not building this because they think it's cool. They're doing it because it's been useful and used in other parks. I'm just very concerned about the boulder structure of being able to do that. But so I like concept A. I would love to be able to put the sensory garden in there.
Sheila, I was thinking along a little bit different. Your daughter might have ate the plants. I would have been the kid eating whatever mystery stuff's in the sandbox. I was like, but you know what? I rarely ever get sick, and so I still credit it to that. And so I thought the same thing, and I was like, it's okay. I turned out fine.
Just a real quick question. Would Harper's playground have any quote unquote data on which activities are most used in parks that are similar of those activities? So do they have any data on how often the kids or adults use the sensory garden? That kind of thing. They may not, because it would have to be a pretty formal process, and I would think fairly expensive to get it really official, but if they had any kind of data on that.
That's a good question. I'll have to get back to you on that one. I know there's been studies done on playgrounds and usage in playgrounds,
Right.
but I don't know that Harper's necessarily led those.
And the one other thing on, to Laura's point on having like the benches and selling that, what about corporate sponsorships? Harper's Playground did one in Tokyo and Nike sponsored it. So would that be something that we would want to consider?
If I could comment on that, because that's a very good point. I haven't heard yet what exactly we're thinking about in terms of funding, grants or maybe a part of a bond or something like that. But, and I really understand the concerns about cost, and D is significantly more complicated. I think I counted something like 14 or 15 elements to it where this one has less. But if you're talking about a bond, or if you're talking about a Nike sponsorship, or the UW or somebody like that, or sometimes it's better. They like to sponsor stuff that is noteworthy. And so, and I'm not arguing for B. I could certainly go for A with some enhancements and moving around, a hybrid kind of a thing. Because the hill is big. You could do some moving around with that, but just recognize as we get closer to actually building it and funding it, sometimes a little bit more pizzazz, if that's the right word. I don't mean it like that, but I think this is going to garner, as we heard it from the Harper presentation, it garners significant community support. I mean, I think people are going to come out of the woodwork to help support this, not only from a participation standpoint, but perhaps for funding too. And so anything we can cheat from B to A, I think would be worthwhile and could probably work. By the way, all of these comments are fantastic. Even though it's probably going to drive you crazy trying to put them all together, but
no, actually I'm hearing a lot of similarities from the other outreach that we've done. Now, do you have something real quick? I do want to share with the stakeholder stuff after.
Oh, okay. Can we do one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is there any possibility to get rid of more blackberry bushes to create more space and save the basketball court and put the swings over there?
Push it back.
That is a possibility. We do have development there just to the north too, so we also have to be mindful of that.
Just a real quick question. Accessible garden, would that be, can you push your wheelchair up facing to that? So would that slope in enough that you could get up rather than having to go sideways like this to interact? If you go straight into it. I would encourage them to design it that way.
Yeah. So I want to share with you some of the feedback we've heard from our stakeholders real quick, and we can have a little bit more discussion with the time that we have left, and hopefully have both. So the stakeholders that, Nick and I have met with 3 different stakeholders so far. Kindring in Bothell is one of them. Their early support and therapies for children at birth to 10 years old. We got a tour of their facility. It was really incredible. We got to see their classes in action, their therapies and support for all types of physical, occupational, speech, and more. So they have a component to it that's actually kind of interesting too. Is as much for the parents of the children as well, because a lot of these parents, their world is rocked, and when they find out that their children have different abilities and they have to learn to cope and deal with those. So it was a really great experience. We also met with Alyssa Burnett, Adult Life Center, sat down with them, had a conversation. And then we had an internal stakeholder meeting, which I mentioned as well, with much of our core staff, about 7 or 8 of us. They've kind of this group's been kind of along on the whole process. We actually went down to Portland and toured the facilities down there as well. I will be meeting tomorrow with Heather Feldner, who Maggie connected us with and was at the last workshop. And then we'll be meeting on next Tuesday with the Sorensen Early Childhood Center. So, and then of course the Sorensen Early Childhood Centers with the North Shore School District, and they're kind of the pre-K, preschool age kind of. So we kind of have this continuum where we have the kindering 0 to 3, 3 to 6 with the Sorensen, and then you have the school district kind of takes over from there, and then you have the adult with the Burnett. So it's kind of a cool, kind of encompasses a broad range of services that are provided in our community and some of the community that we're trying to reach through this project. So some of the just the general feedback, everybody's really excited about it, which was really cool to hear that feedback. And we've always known that these centers use our parks, but I didn't have a realization of how intimately they use them. They know specifically what elements are at what parks, and they will seek those parks out for those. One example with the kindering meeting is, the steps at the amphitheater at Park at Bothell, that is a specific amenity that is imprinted in their mind. They know if, like we're trying to work with the child on these mobility skills, it's a place to take them. Let's see. So with that, I guess, actually that kindering conversation, we had the fencing conversation and the lopers. So this was kind of an aha moment for me, and we've actually talked about this as a group. The fact that we're not going to be able to provide for every single need in our community. The best we can do is bring everybody together in one space and provide the best that we can. But the takeaway, because I asked that question because that was something that came up in the workshop about the fencing and the lopers. And it came back to that. We know what amenities are in what parks. So if we think of this a little broader than just the Cedar Grove playground, maybe the solution to that, there's some recognition that maybe the fence around playground is not the best spot. You don't have people walking through there using the walking loop. It is kind of more open area. We want to encourage this interaction with the basketball courts, the ball fields, the restrooms and stuff like that. Maybe that's not the best area, but maybe the next park we design, maybe that is the opportunity to have a fence, and those families that need that amenity know where that is, and that's the playground that they visit. So that is something to kind of think of that really stuck with me, and stuck with Nick as well. It's something we've known, but to hear it is another thing too. So a couple other takeaways with both groups, the Alyssa Burnett Center and Kindering. The sensory garden is significant. That's important. They recommend that be incorporated into whatever concept you go with. The WeGo swing was important. So this is a structure that's a significant investment. It costs a lot of money. It's a big footprint, but it is a way to get children and adults in wheels that motion that they can't get otherwise. And we saw that in the survey. It is important. It rose to the top of the play activities. Basketball court was obviously a big topic of discussion. There's a lot of people that didn't like the removal of the basketball court. So we did start talking about different options, like what if whoever's on the basketball court doesn't have the motor skills to throw a basketball 10 feet in the air. Maybe there's an opportunity to put a 6-foot hoop there off to the side or something, I like where the discussion's going, where we're having this evening, like what are some of those other opportunities we have out there? Because it could be a multi-use.
I've seen basketball courts that have the hoops are movable.
Yeah.
And so that you can bring them down for wheelchair basketball. And there's no fence around that, right?
No.
Yeah, so that's an issue because, the basketball rolls out, then you gotta have, there are people usually around that can help that out, but that's a great idea, making it multi-use.
Yeah, and of course, the hills, and anytime you have the train, is those two, which both concepts have those in slightly different formats. Kindring had brought up the idea of interactive art, which Nick, when you were speaking, it kind of really sounded similar, having, like mazes with your fingers or something like that, or scavenger hunts. Elizabeth Burnett Center, they often do scavenger hunts when they go out to a park. So somehow making like an interactive, like art experience of some sort, like an immersive experience of some type.
Therapeutic recreation.
There you go. I did talk a little bit more with our stakeholders about thinking about the playground a little bit bigger than just the playground itself, because you do have these amenities around it that interact with the playground. The restrooms, I've heard in this conversation a couple times, so we've asked those questions specifically. There is a level of ADA assessment that we're going to have to do on that. I think based on the structure that we have out there, it's workable, but there are things like, automated doors that we're going to have to consider, push buttons, clearances, make sure our clearances are good. We've talked about not only child changing tables, but adult changing tables. So we got a tour of some of the facilities that they have at the Elizabeth Burnett Center for that. So those are some of the things we talked about. I heard wayfinding signage. Signage was brought up with the Elizabeth Burnett Center. Sometimes people aren't always comfortable with adults playing on the playground. And so maybe having a sign, my name is Aaron, and I enjoy playing in this playground for this reason, a picture of yourself. This is who I am. This is why I'm here. So maybe there's some ways of kind of connecting what this is all about, that this is a playground for everybody, all ages, all abilities. Let's see, moving on. Oh, yeah, I guess kind of related to that. If you're walking around the walking path, you'll walk around the field. And as you walk around the field counterclockwise, kind of left field of the ball field, there's kind of a grass area there. Maybe there's a place to put some seating out there, like.
Or your idea about a sensory, what do you call it, a sensory break area?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe there's a way we can expand an element of the playground. Elizabeth Burnett Center has a walk-run program. I know when I get older, if I was walking around that park, it'd be a nice place to sit and rest, if my knees bother me or whatever.
Yeah.
So thinking a little bit broader than that, there's opportunities there as well. Let's see, scavenger hunt activities. So moving on to more of the internal stakeholder meeting. Harper's Hill was popular. Sensory Garden again was popular. Keeping the basketball course was popular. There are some concerns about grade on concept B. So you're going to have to get people to elevation. What does that look like on the other side of the hill? So you're going to be either concept. You're going to be building the hill.
Right.
But there is some concern about that. A lot of discussion about the sand play area. Having it centralized, option B may not be the best for maintenance. That's not end all be all, but that is a consideration, having it concept A a little bit more off to the side, sand spilling off into the grass area instead of onto the main traffic areas. Let's see, there's a couple other things that kind of stood out in our internal stakeholder meeting that I thought were interesting and worth consideration. Was the entry areas. Like, kind of concerned with the entry areas and that kind of vegetative barrier. So that vegetative barrier is to kind of keep people feeling like they're enclosed within the playground. But there was also some concern about sight lines and safety. So like that restroom structure, our maintenance folks every morning will walk behind the maintenance structure to get their cleaning supplies. I'm a maintenance worker. I know what that's like. If it's dark and feeling unsafe, in that situation. So that is something that might be worth considering. The suggestion was also to swap the more formal entry area with less formal entry area. So it's something that's visible from the parking lot, maybe it's more inviting to the person that's coming to the playground for the first time. So that was a suggestion I thought was interesting, worth considering. Yeah, I think that's pretty much. And I think there's also like this opportunity too, because we do have this walking loop. I think there's a way to kind of like integrate that walking experience through the playground a little bit cleaner, because it's kind of cool to have that interaction of somebody that might not otherwise be in the playground and have kids around and that other activity going on at the same time. So those are just kind of not to influence you. I just want to give you the feedback because you've had the engagement summary to kind of read through. That's the feedback that we've received today. So
That's an interesting point you just brought up. It kind of struck me is, we're inviting people who are challenged and disabled and need this kind of structure to come. But we also have soccer and baseball going on, basketball, maybe pickleball, whatever, and a loop around. So maybe kids or people who have not been able to watch a baseball game or et cetera, will, in that loop, will be able to experience that as well. I mean, there's lots of activity, there's fun going on. I think there's a snack bar, isn't there? No, there's not. Hey, that's something, yeah.
there you go. Put that one down.
Very good.
Whitney and Laura, my computer might die. We're playing a game of computers failing over here. So if my computer dies, you're still linked on with Denise. You just won't see the slide. I apologize.
Okay, thanks, Blaine. I was just gonna say I'm gonna need to drop, but I apologize. I love all the feedback and this was super informative. Thank you, Aaron, for all your hard work.
Thank you, Laura.
Before you head out, Laura, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think Aaron's going to ask for Whitney to discuss an approval to proceed forward with a preferred design.
Okay.
So would you like to be on that call, Laura, to put in your, I don't know what you call it, vote? I don't know, the motion. So there's still kind of a conversation to be had. I think unify there's A and B, but if you go with one or the other option, what, he's written down all the notes. What are the things that you would like to see? Of course, we can't get it all into one, but ideally there would be a preferred design sent to the consultant. So Laura, I would love for your vote to be in there if it's possible.
Okay.
Are you good to go to that next level before she heads out?
I think we're kind of at that point now. We're kind of running a little tight on time. Everybody's comfortable with that.
Yeah.
I am.
To move along, I would make a motion that the board consider supporting concept A with some of the things that we talked about, bringing over from B where possible. And I can't remember exactly what they were, but there were some really good ideas coming over from B to A. I've initially, because I love big shoes, so B was my initial, but you all convinced me that A is probably more feasible and still retains all of the elements that we heard from the consultant, and I think they still would be very excited. But the orientation of the sand area, we need to flesh out what Harper's Hill really means. I like the idea of replacing the one that you had, the one climbing thing with the other climbing thing. So I would make a motion that we support concept A with as much of, or the key concept B things that the board has mentioned. That's pretty nebulous, but best I can do right now.
So I do want to a point of emphasis here with that this is a concept. So every time you go through this exercise, you have a concept when you're done. when it's constructed, no matter what the project is, it's gonna be different than what that concept looks like, so. Because you're gonna go through the design process and you're gonna learn things about the project that you're not going to that depth with right now. So there's opportunity as we move through design to alter elements, but what we're really looking for is kind of like this just general approach to the design. So don't get too hung up in like, I want this specific element here, or not this one. This needs to be shifted over to this way. That type of stuff. So
I will revise my motion then to have the board support concept A in general.
Second.
Third.
All right, so motion was made by Manny to support concept A as a general conceptual design moving forward with feedback to, a lot of feedback to incorporate as we move forward. That was seconded by Sheila, maybe?
Nick.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed? Awesome, passes unanimously. That was fun.
It was fun.
We have all the notes compiled. Aaron has a thick notebook of that, and he'll go back to the consultant, and then we will keep in touch when we're coming back to the board. But perfect.
Yeah, so I think we're hearing enough of feedback, and a lot of the feedback is honestly very similar. A lot of the discussion here is similar to what we're hearing. We can incorporate those elements in the final concept. We'll bring that back.
Fantastic. Hope we're as good at this as on the parking lot landing.
Well, you have three.
That's next
three to
month.
look at.
Three?
That's next month.
Yeah.
Okay.
So before you head out, Laura, well, you're reappointed, so we'll have you next month, which is a wonderful yay. But we'll be doing the same exact exercise, just a little bit different format because the consultant will be leading the exercise. You will get a packet before the board meeting, and there will be 3 alternatives to be reviewing.
Great.
Sounds fabulous. I have a hard time reading the room, but is there a motion to adjourn?
All motion to adjourn.
She's on spring break.
I really, honestly, I only have 2 days away. It's tonight and tomorrow.
Oh.
And so I was feeling a bit torn, but this was really, really useful. So thank you all so much.
Thank you for being here tonight. Have a wonderful vacation.
Denise, we'll miss you so much.
I'm gonna miss you guys too.
All right.
I don't know if we seconded my motion to adjourn, but.
Second.
All right, motion was made by Laura, seconded by, was that Jace?
Mhm.
All right, I got it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right.
Thank you. Have a wonderful time,
everyone.
Whitney.
You can have one.
Bye, Laura.
Yeah.
I'll just take them.
Bye, Denise.
Bye.
Are you gonna come visit the meeting?
Great expertise. Anybody's welcome to come to the arts.